Hey everyone, what's up? It's Babylonius from PeakofSerenity.com here with another 5-minute Windwalker guide for you. This time we'll be covering the trinkets from the Nighthold raid. So let's put 5 minutes on the clock and see if I can't squeeze what we need to into 5 minutes. Here we go. Alright, so the first trinket we're going to start with is Arcana Golem Digit. This drops from Trilliax. And what it does is it has a static agility, which is great, and the proc chance, your melee attacks have a chance to rake all enemies in front of you for a chunk of arcane damage. This is a AoE, but it is kind of in a cone. It's not all the way around you, and it is a relatively short AoE cone, so it won't hit targets quite as far away as, for example, our Strike of the Windlord or Fist of Fury cones will. And really, this is a good, strong trinket. Not great, really, in any regard, but decent, kind of all-around single target and AoE damage. Because of that cone. The cone is, like I said, the cone is short, so you have to be close if you want to hit as many targets as possible. But it is a decent single target and AoE trinket. I will skip over Convergence of Fates and come back to that because that really requires the most amount of time. Next we have Draught of Souls or Draft of Souls, and this has a static haste, and what it does when you use it, you enter a, quote, Fell-Crazed Rage, dealing shadow damage to a random enemy nearby every quarter of a second for 3 seconds. During this time, you cannot move or use your abilities during your rage. So what this does, when you use it, you attack any enemies that are within the range. It's not an AoE trinket per se. It will do single target damage to all of those targets. It will not share the damage, so the damage is the max. And really, this trinket can be very strong, but typically, because of how Windwalker works, it is one of our weaker trinkets. If you can use it to its maximum benefit, that's great. It's a very strong trinket, but because it has haste and because the Fell-Crazed Rage lasts for 3 seconds and you can't move, typically you're going to run into a situation where you might cap resources or delay another ability with cooldown. And lose damage there, kind of decreasing the quality of this trinket. So if you can get the most out of it, this trinket is very strong, but it is very difficult for a Windwalker to get the most out of it because of how it works. So typically not one that's super strong for us. Next we have the Entwined Elemental Foci. This is typically considered kind of the best all-around trinket that comes out of the Nighthold. It has static agility, and what it does is your melee and range attacks have a chance to grant you Fiery Frost or Arcane Enchants for 20 seconds. If you're familiar with the Memento of Anger Boda trinket from Maw of Souls, this is basically a copy of that trinket with a longer duration buff that provides more stats, but it is less. It procs less often and does not proc off deaths like Memento does. But this is a very strong trinket. You can get one or all three of the enchants. They all proc independently of one another. So it is possible to have all three at once or have only one or really get none. So if all three procs, it's a very strong trinket. The procs can be haste, crit, or mastery. So again, if you get them all, it's great. If you get one or two, it's fine. So really the strength of this trinket is in the proc rate, which is relatively low, but enough that it is a very strong trinket and one you're definitely going to want to look for out of the Nighthold. Next we have Night Blooming Frond. This is typically considered the weakest of our legendaries, of our trinkets, sorry, and this has a static agility, and what it does is your auto attacks have a chance to grant what's called recursive strikes, which causes your auto attack to deal additional damage and increase the intensity of recursive strikes. Because Windwalker's auto attack damage is a relatively small chunk of our damage, and our auto attacks are not overly fast because of some things like channels like Fist of Fury, this trinket is relatively weak for us. We just don't get as much out of the proc as some other specs. So typically this is considered our worst trinket. And last we're going to come back to Convergence of Fates. Convergence of Fates has a static agility, and what it does is your attacks have a chance to reduce the remaining cooldown on Storm, Earth, and Fire or Serenity by 5 seconds. Storm, Earth, and Fire has approximately a 2.4 procs per minute, so on average, it'll take about 10 seconds off of the cooldown of your Storm, Earth, and Fire for every minute. And for Serenity, it has a 1.6% proc rate, or 1.6 procs per minute. So it takes about, 5 between 5 and 10 seconds off of your Serenity cooldown. The strength of this trinket comes in the fight timing. If having that reduced cooldown gets you an extra cast of Serenity or Storm, Earth, and Fire, or gets you a better timed cast, if it lines up better, you're not having to delay it for a big ad phase or anything like that, a big damage phase, and this trinket can be very strong. There really is no other trinket quite like it in terms of what it can bring. If it gets you that extra Serenity, if it lines it up better with your trinkets and stuff like that, it can be very strong. However, if it doesn't get you that, if you don't get an extra proc, or an extra cast or a better timed cast, then really that equip rate is almost useless. So this trinket can vary from being totally useful to totally useless depending on the fight mechanics and stuff like that. So you have to understand a lot to really be able to use Convergence of Fate well. So we, again, as per usual, squeaked out a little bit over 5 minutes, but I think I squeezed it in all right. So if you like this kind of content, please let me know in the comments. Like, comment, and subscribe to my channel. If you want more information about Windwalker in general, check out my other 5-minute guide, just some of the other guides I have, as well as PeakofSerenity.com for all your monk needs. If you like this kind of content, please support us through Patreon and PayPal. Support the site, support myself, keep us doing all this kind of stuff. If you want to see other videos of this kind that cover different topics, let me know in the comments. And hopefully this answers more questions than it creates. So until next time, I will see you later.